Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, and it is 8:35 a.m. EST. Got started a little bit late. Had to make myself a beverage, a coffee-type beverage, because I don't drink alcohol at all. I think I had alcohol like last summer, and it reminded me of why I don't like alcohol. Non-farm payrolls, I mean to say, pretty brutal number. It came out about 20 minutes ago and pushed the charts around. So let's take a brief look at that data really quick. And, or not non-farm, was it non-farm? Yeah, it was. Okay, so today, Wednesday the 4th, non-farm employment change. So the change was expected to be 110 or really 111,000 jobs added, but it was only 37,000 jobs. So what that means and why it matters on the charts with, USD, JPY, Bitcoin, NASDAQ, all that is all going to push things down because in a sense, it's going to push things up against the dollar, right? So for example, let's take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin really didn't react, actually, barely any reaction to Bitcoin. So that's the one thing to be, very interested in. Bitcoin kind of doing its own thing and ignoring the news, more or less. But when you have weak economic data, the assumption is usually that the rates will get cut eventually. And so the dollar gets weaker, things go up against the dollar, but it appears that Bitcoin is in enough of its own world, kind of heading down over the last several hours, that data barely, was a blip. You can see that here on the 5-minute chart on this candle for Bitcoin. It got pushed up a little bit, went from about 104,800 all the way up to almost 105,000. I mean, it's, whatever that move is, a couple hundred points maybe, and it's just on the low time frame starting to kind of show a little bit of support. But in the end, the move doesn't seem like it did much for Bitcoin. NASDAQ, it did. NASDAQ rose up against it a little bit here, or at least it's starting to. It doesn't seem like the news affected NASDAQ much either, though, because it should have pushed NASDAQ up with dollar potentially getting weaker, but NASDAQ actually came down. So it seems like whatever news happened, it appears that maybe just there was a lot of uncertainty and now there's not. So money's flooding back into the market and it's going to do what it was going to do anyway. But if you look at the forex markets, which is where I was kind of interested in looking, because that's where I trade, the charts were kind of ready to pop down a little bit anyway on the low time frame. And this is the 5-minute chart, by the way. This is very low time frame. You're only looking back a day or two on price action. And there was some pretty wild stuff that happened yesterday. A little after the market closed too, there was a big spike up, and that happened across the forex market. So the currency markets are reacting to the news in more of an expected way. The dollar perceived to be getting weaker because there are these assumed cuts that may happen in the future, and therefore this chart goes down. That it would push the euro chart up, and the euro chart seems to be following kind of what I thought it would do based on yesterday's show there, more or less. But all in all, the news seems to be pretty tame, and it might be because there's more news coming. We have the ISM services PMI. So I believe we had the PMI on Monday for manufacturing, and these are purchasing managers index. These are economic data that tell us how things are happening on the production of goods and services. Is there money flowing into the economy? Are the people building things spending money? And that's a really good indication of how well the economy is doing. And that comes out in about a little less than an hour and a half. So it may be that the market is kind of hanging back and waiting to see how that data is, because that data came out again for the manufacturing side of things on Monday. And let's look back and see if that really had a strong effect on Monday. Let's look. We'll stick with USDJPY for that. Monday at 10 a.m. EST. So Monday. Yeah, not, from what I'm seeing here, it wasn't. See, 8 o'clock. Yeah, not a huge effect. No, very, very little effect. So it looks like the unemployment data had a bit more effect. It might be that the PMI just was a nothing burger that day. So market might just be waiting to see what happens. And if you look at it, it's kind of caught in a range. So let's just look at the general market here. USDJPY kind of predicted this on the show yesterday that it would come up to this area, and that's exactly what it did. It had a bounce on this structure that's been created, right? And it's a bit of a range here. There's a lot of pivoting between these two areas, and price bounced up to this area, and now for the moment is headed down. Now, is it headed down because this is news related, or is it going to continue to head down, or what's the plan? I think what we might see, and again, I think I wouldn't want to say too much until the news comes out. It could bounce around a bit, and it just USDJPY has been moving a lot for a while. If you zoom out, this going back the whole year, it's been heading down, right? And now it's kind of bounced off a long-term structure. So let's go in the daily chart and just kind of review this real quick, and then we'll go over to Bitcoin after this. If you look at this on the daily, you should go back to what is this, September 2024, and you see where it bounced here. This is a very strong support, very high level demand zone, right? And I mean high level as in high time frame. I mean, as very important when the markets look at that level. And surely enough, when price came back down to that, it bounced up pretty hard. And it had been going down since all of the first quarter and a lot of the second quarter, all the way through late April. So we get a bounce, and now USDJPY needs to start to make a decision as to which way it's going to go. And on the very high time frame, see if I can gather some monthly data here. It's still pretty bearish overall, right? But when you see such a high time frame bounce like that, what you may end up seeing is price needing to decide which way it's going to go. And that might take some time. It might take time where price kind of needs to, bounce in this area and just decide which way it's going to go. You have periods of very strong movement in a given direction, and then you might have a period of consolidation, which we've already started and we're well into. It might be that this ends pretty soon and price makes a decision up or down. And so what I do is, among many things, is I look for pivot points at these structure points. If price were to make its way back down to, say, this structure, I might look to take a long right there. If price were to make its way eventually up to this structure right here, if we extend this out a bit here like that, then I would look for price to possibly bounce off the top. That's one way to play. And of course, there are all kinds of games to play in between. And when you zoom in, you get other structure points. And this is, a fractal situation where you could just find these points and look for price to react at them. It's one way to trade. It's a very successful way to trade. For the moment, though, at least for now, it does appear like it wants to continue down a bit. If I were to zoom into, say, the 3-hour chart, which is like a good swing trading time frame, this was kind of an extreme move, and the algos, the indicators and all that stuff that I use in the algos are a bit stretched out. But I do think what's going to happen on this, let's just kind of draw it out on the 30-minute time frame. I think, and it's hard to say, so two things will happen here. Now, again, we have data coming out. So that data is going to put a lot of uncertainty into what I'm about to draw. But this is a big move. I think we're going to see maybe bounce back up to grab liquidity. And then whatever data is going to come out maybe will happen in that same time frame, and price will either come back to this area again, or it may end up where it actually rejects and starts to head back down. So those are kind of the possibilities I see. Price always could break above this. It was rather bullish going into it, but I think that there might be some hurdles that have to get cleared. And if it were to break above these highs, it might not be until either Asian session or tomorrow. And tomorrow, the data is, as it is every week, you have the unemployment claims. Now, trading the euro is probably going to get tiring, or very tired, very quiet today, because we have their main refinancing rate is happening tomorrow. So I probably won't even take a look at that. But Bitcoin itself, I have been watching it pull what looks to me like a bear flag. I mean, if I were to, just kind of use the old, chart patterns type way of looking at things, where if I were to zoom out here and take a look on the daily chart, you see Bitcoin, we talked about this before. So to look at it, like I said, on a higher time frame, we had a big move up from 75,000 going back to April, right? And it just kept going and going and going and going. And it finally topped out at a new all-time high of 112. And again, we talked about this on Tuesday, but this is a top-ish formation, a local top. It doesn't mean it's the top and everything is going to go down forever. And it just means that it might need to take a break. So price topped, came down, tried to here, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this a little easier. There. So price made a top, and it was a new all-time high. Came down a bit, tried to reclaim that top and got rejected, and then continued down. So under normal circumstances, you would see price, at least if it doesn't continue down, it would go sideways for a bit. And if it were still bullish, it would head up, and it might have to reset to the downside. It's just either way it might happen, and we just gotta have to watch it to see what's going to happen. Higher time frame, I expect something like that to happen. I expect to calm down and then a bounce around, maybe in this range between 90,000, 91,000 and about maybe 110,000 ish. Bounce around in there for the next few months. We'll see. Now it is Bitcoin. It could easily just go ahead and break that all-time high, or news could send it down to all kinds of crazy lows. I doubt that'll happen, but it can. But for the moment, I just see price kind of calming down, going sideways, and hanging out in this range. And it might even hang out in this little range for a bit for like a week or two between say 101,000 and 105. It could bounce around in there, but I'm not really betting on that one. It's possible though. I expect volatility to slow down, and then that's that for that. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. Okay, so NASDAQ has been bullish. NASDAQ's been very resilient in the face of everything this week, last week, and really this last month, going back to April when everybody panicked and thought we were going to see a recession, and now you're seeing price reapproaching all-time highs. 22,430-ish is the all-time high for NASDAQ. Price is approaching that. Will it make it there? It's possible. It is very, 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 very possible that it'll make it there, and maybe, like, if you're going to do like the current trajectory, maybe mid-June, if not sooner. It's very possible. Will it make it above that? It's hard to say. I think we do have some possible tariffs coming back online, and the environment is a little shaky still. We have the war going on, Russia and Ukraine. Some think that there's escalation, others think that there's restraint. We talked a little bit about that yesterday in the Algo Factory private live lab. V the Gorilla came in and was able to give us some of the intel that he's hearing from his higher level guys as to what he thinks will happen in Russia. And of course, whenever you have any kind of conflict, one of the things that we always look at is the price of gold, because gold during a conflict really spikes, and spikes hard. And it's a really kind of an easy win. So whether there is going to be restraint or whether there is going to be conflict, that can kind of give us some clues as to what might happen with gold price and whether or not, it's like a good thing to buy, own, or trade. So speaking of that, come on over, algofactory.tech, go to the, free algo, links in the description. If you click on that, give us your email, give us whatever name you want. We don't care if it's real or fake. We'll send you the algo. It'll be the very next screen that you see, but also we'll get you on a mailing list so that you can know when the weekly updates are coming out, the free weekly update that I give. And also we're going to have a, what do you call it? Like a workshop where you watch me trade for, 2 or 3 days. And I haven't set a date for that. It'll probably be the 3rd or 4th week of June on like Tuesday and Wednesday, probably. I'll have to take a look at like the economic calendar and, those types of things, and try to find good dates to trade to avoid news and things like that. So go ahead, give us that data. We'll send it out to you. In the meantime, I'm going to head over to the private live lab. Thank you all for watching, and never forget.
Join us or die.
All right, just kidding. Having a little fun. No one's going to die. We love you all. Alan really wanted to come back right there. And we will catch you mañana, iguana, bright and early at 8:30 a.m. EST, algofactory.tech.